Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Two-Headed Wizard, a Once Upon a Galaxy podcast. I'm Tom, Gempot in game and on Discord, and I'm super excited to introduce my first guest, Applechips. You might know Applechips from his insane Butcher or No endgame screenshots on the Discord, and he's a top-ranked player who's hit rank 1 multiple times. He was also world champion in Eternal, if any of you played that game, so he's definitely got some background chops. I think that's enough intro. Let's get into it. Hi, Applechips.
Hi. Super
Uh,
happy to be here. Super excited to talk about
yeah,
Galaxy.
So I guess I'm gonna just get into a little bit of an intro about you and your background as a player, so that people kind of know where
hmm
you're coming from. What do you do in Galaxy? What do you like doing? How's it been for you? And then where do you come from? Like as far as gaming, what kind of games do you like, and how has that informed your opinions about Legacy? Oh, sorry, Galaxy.
Yeah, yeah. So in general, my favorite types of games to play are card games. So I played Hearthstone back in the day. I've played Magic. I played Eternal. Those are all digital card games. Like that's kind of how I get really into it. Just because they're so accessible. And but I also I gave the auto battle genre a try with Storybook Brawl. That was the first one I played, and then that went under. But this game is, I think, a lot better than Storybook Brawl. So it's actually pretty cool that it worked out that way. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
I'm actually really excited to hear you talk more about that because I loved Storybook Brawl. I think a lot of people did,
Yeah.
and I think that by the time that I didn't get to the kind of drama near the end of it, but um,
Yeah.
there was by the time I stopped playing, I think that the game was kind of pushing past the boundaries of what it could do, and I don't know. I guess I was getting a little tired of it in a way that
Mhm.
I was a little worried that this game would be the same, but then I think at the point where that was starting to happen with Storybook Brawl, when I started to be in the top 10, top 20 um, in that game and was not having as much fun, I think I
Mhm.
kind of broke through a wall with Galaxy and I felt like I unlocked this new sense of the game that was really cool. So tell me about why you like Galaxy more and why you think it has more promise.
I think it's really crazy, but uh I mean, personally, I was when I picked it up, I was kind of in a bored state. I wasn't super happy with where Magic was going at the time. I don't know, for people that play Magic, that was I stopped playing around the time VV became crazy, and they said they were gonna ban it, but then they just chose not to for months. And so I was looking for something else to pick up, and then I just kind of I think I just saw this on YouTube or something, this game, and I picked it up and I was like, oh, this is Storybook Brawl. And then as I played it, I was instantly hooked. It's just everything I played did with it. I was like, wow, this is Storybook Brawl, but oh, I can have all these treasures, and oh wait, the life system, oh, when I lose a fight, I can win the fight and then gain my heart back. So I don't know, just almost every element of this game is superior to Storybook Brawl. And I really I'm not saying this to someone that hated Storybook Brawl. I actually really like Storybook Brawl, but I just think the creators, it's the same creators, and
Yeah, I
they
think they
just
learned a lot from it, and
yeah.
I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a post Balatro take on Storybook Brawl. I don't know if you've played that, but
Yeah,
the way
yeah, I
that the
could see that.
numbers work in this game is so much to me that there's a lot of other ways, there's a lot of ways to scale, but one of the general ways that I've found is you build up your base numbers, which is your chips, and then you get your molt, and then you get your times molt, right? So you get your
hmm
a reasonable slot bonus, and then you get your Daedalus, and then you get or your Boon Willow most likely, really, and then you get your double double, and you know that's how you go off.
Yeah.
But of course, there's so many other ways. It's just I think that that's that kind of exponential multiplicative is a default thing in this game instead of a weird exception, and I think that leads to
Oh yeah.
really explosive end games in a way that I really love.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um,
And oh, go ahead.
oh no, you go. I was gonna ask you a question, but I'll ask after.
Yeah, I mean, in that vein, I think a lot of times people feel oh, the game is it's super dominated by dragons or whatever, but and there's definitely truth to that, but I mean, in any game there's always going to be a default kind of dominant strategy that is the most consistent, but I think as they've added more captains and more cards, and then the balance updates have been also really good. It's a lot less it's definitely, I wouldn't even say it's dragons, it's more treasures, But like I feel like
Uh-huh.
that's just the game. It's like that's just because you can get infinite treasure. Like you're not restricted to three treasures, which I think was like one of the best changes they could have ever made in like relation to Storybook Brawl. Like yeah, like most decks are trying to get treasures, but that's like one of the coolest parts of the game. Like
Well, I
so
also think that like I don't know. I think that the meta right now has changed so dramatically in this past week that I don't have a great handle on it, and I also don't want to just like take over the show by like grumbling about it because I think in general I've been less happy with the changes, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I'd rather hear your opinion
yeah,
first.
it's actually
Um,
funny that you brought that up too because I think this like they meant for this to be like a very minor balance change, I
oh, it's so
think.
big.
And but the funny thing is, because of this change, I think treasures are actually a lot less important than they were before. So like, if people are unhappy with it, it's like, well, be careful what you wish for.
That's
Because
so funny to me because I think that like up until this patch, I was like having a fair number, like a ton of success with like a lot of treasure light decks. I think that like there were a
mm,
lot of strategies that I had that were treasure light that were like valid. They could compete against dragons and
mm,
such and Rolos. Um, and now there's one strategy that doesn't need treasures, but it's gonna get them anyway. Um, and
yeah,
I'm referring to Peachy Queen, of course. Like that
definitely.
it's that well, let's get into that in a little bit. I don't want to. I would like to
Okay.
like go into specific units, but I think I have a couple questions about like kind of the sort of. I think it's because you were talking about like something has to be strong and broken, and I think that's one thing that like I I totally agree. Like dragons are, I have never really found them to be particularly much of a problem, and I think that like sometimes people who are first getting started in the game will get a little bit like blown away by how powerful these boards can be and think that like, oh my God, this thing is overpowered. But like the game's got to end somehow. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't just like it's not I don't know. I personally like do not have that much fun in these like extremely long back and forth games where you're both just so over the top that like it really is kind of just fight RNG. Like I think it can be really fun to do these long grindy games where like the other person is like doing something nuts, but you're doing something a little bit different and your timing windows are a little different. So you can try
Hmm.
and like figure out like, okay, like I know that I can never beat this worm scale in like 5 turns. Like by that point, there's nothing I can do. But like, how can I kind of adapt, go off of scaling, do all this stuff to try and like get there
Yeah,
in time? And I think that that's a really fun thing to have in the game. I think inevitability is not a bad thing. I don't think
definitely.
it's great when that is like when that comes too early. Like I think one of the worst feelings
Hmm.
in the game is when it's turn 6 or 7 and you're like, I'm done. Like where you're like, it's okay because like sometimes people get handed a royal flush or whatever. Right? Like sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
I'm probably not getting first. But when you're like, I'm just done. Like I just can't fight this game. That's like, I guess that happens even earlier to be honest. But
There's definitely been even in like the short like 3 or 4 months I've been playing. There's been like multiple eras based off like they've done some like under the hoods things to change the game. Like the biggest thing they did was they changed it so that well they took Ugly Duckling out. That helped somewhat with the early board things, and then they also changed it so that the like I don't know how they did it, like whether they just have like a stat threshold or something for like the X turn or whatever, but they made it so that early crazy boards are like a lot less likely to happen consistently. Like they didn't remove them completely. So I don't know how they did that, but that was a big thing. And the consequence of that change was like the biggest MMR inflation that I've seen, at least since I've been playing. Which I'm not saying it's a bad thing necessarily, but it's definitely like a very meaningful thing. If anything, I think it's actually a pretty good thing because yeah, I think in general, like the games being short isn't necessarily a problem, but when the game feels out of control, like early on in the game, like consistently, that is a big problem. So,
I
like
think
you were
that's,
saying,
yeah, like I actually really like what you said about like the games being short not being a problem because I think that one thing that like I feel very strongly about, but that part of why I wanted to do this show actually is to like get a lot of different opinions on it because like I don't want to just assume that everyone like should think
mm,
the way that I think, right? Like it's just that like the reason I think this is I think from something real. And I think that I guess like to me like I think that it's not an easy way to lose the game and also have less fun is to treat the first 6 turns of the game like they're a waiting room for the real game instead of like
yeah,
playing the game from turn 1. Um,
definitely.
I feel like before this most recent patch, there was a kind of strong shift that happened, kind of turns 1 to 3, maybe 4. Basically, commons, uncommons, rares, epics, and legendaries all felt very distinct to me in what you were like what you could expect to get out of them and kind of where
Hmm.
they might go. That like the the scaling uncommons in niche situations might end up on an endgame board, but that was like not you would have to assemble a pretty specific situation. Your commons were there
Hmm.
to, like get you through that era to that point. And then your rares, I think, were either like when you could start to dominate some fights or make some pretty swingy stat changes, or you could start to invest into some really like high potential scaling.
Hmm.
Um, and then the epics, in my opinion, were like basically like just scaling focused, right? That's when you get your like Angelica, Papa Bear, these things that have like terrible Jasmine Dragon, like things with just like completely mid stats, but really dangerous potential. Less so with Papa Bear, but um,
Yeah.
and then the legendaries, you got to end the game somehow, right? So that's when like all bets are off, right? Like the things can be just busted as all hell as long as they kind of make sense within the context of the meta, um, and they're not like overwhelming every other option. And I feel like people just wanted to play like rare and onwards, kind of, where like they just want to like assemble their board, scale, 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 and like figure out how that basically like every fight is like a progress report. And then at the end of the day, like if your grades are like better than everyone else's, you've won the game. And
Yeah.
I think that like a lot of people who are unhappy with parts of the game, I feel like that's like part of the approach. And I guess I started off playing the game kind of that way because I was approaching it a little bit more of like a single player game. And I think it's a lot more fun when you just like think of it as a multiplayer game and like get what you can out of each tier and grow. But
Mm.
the commons that they have feel like rares to me, I guess. They're that kind of like scaling that like can sit on your board and maybe they end up on your end game. Like it's very realistic. So yeah, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm trying to think. I can't. I mean, the only common that really does that is Peachy Queen, I
It's Peachy
think,
Queen, yeah.
right now.
But I
Yeah.
think that that's kind of the like, yeah, I guess it's an exaggeration to say that, but I'm thinking of like Gingerbread House and like um, Hamstar are much, much, much weaker than Peachy Queen, but I think that they have a
Oh,
similar
yeah.
design mentality of like, okay, we want people to like, we know that people just want to like play the thing that says a scaling thing on it, right? And they kind of expect it
Uh,
to work, Like they don't just expect it to like get them to the next tier, they expect it to function and like be part of a cohesive strategy.
yeah. Yeah,
But
I think well, it's interesting because like the gingerbread was like an old card, but now it's like it has new relevance because it's candy, and so it scales with candy. So like that's kind of like I actually think we can also talk about like glutting the common pool. Like that's also something that is like pretty relevant because they didn't remove any commons; they just added three. So like that a consequence of that is like you're gonna have like less silvers and things like that, and it also makes like adding commons to your deck also worse because like just each individual common you have like it's just like worse because of like silvers are like one of the that's another big thing about this game that is like kind of not probably not under that's probably one of the least understood things about this game is the silver like mechanic. It's really there's no resource system in this game, which I actually think is another positive compared to Storybook,
for me, that's one thing
except
that's really
silvers.
big compared to I played a little bit of Teamfight Tactics when I was like
Okay.
trying to explore all my like auto battlers, getting my auto battler fix before I found this one, and yeah, so much of that game is managing your gold, right? You
Mm-hmm.
and because in that one your gold is persistent through turns, and
Mm,
it's wild. And I love that this
yeah.
game is just not it doesn't make you worry about that. I found that it
Yeah.
was just an arbitrary skill test that was like not really there wasn't much of a give and take within the game for it. Uh,
Mm.
TFT players are yelling at me for this, I'm sure. Like there's a lot more strategy to it than that.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, like in Magic, like I think like keeping track of like your lands is like not really it's kind of the least one of the least fun parts about the game. Like having to like, like stress about like, oh, I have to like make sure I leave this much of this color open and then like, oh, I like I tapped the wrong land, so now my turn is completely ruined. Like that's not really that fun. Like, you know. Like
I
yeah,
also
it's
think
it's
that
skill
like
testing, but it's not like good.
I like that like kind of by nature of just the way that like, upgrading your tiers works. You're kind of just like playing a magic game where both players curve out and like
Hmm.
it's competitive because of that. things can change that pretty rapidly here, and some games are less competitive, but still, I think it's very real that like I think
Yeah.
you can get to a point where, or I guess I found that like I get sometimes like especially if my deck is like not working, if it's a captain that I don't really have much of a collection for, or if I'm just like messing around with a strategy that like is fundamentally unsound, um, I'll have like a lot of shops where like I'm like I have nothing. This is nothing. I can't use this. And to me, like that's like a pretty big metric that like I'm doing something wrong if it happens
Mm.
all the time. How do you approach like flexibility and like deck building?
So, I mean, so the other, yeah, the deck building is a big thing. Like, I can't think, I don't think there's another auto battler that has like a deck building element that I'm aware of. There probably is somewhere out there, but it's a pretty like, it's a relatively like, innovative like idea for this genre in my opinion, or to my knowledge. And the consequence of that is so I don't know if you play like a ton of card games or not, but like or like when you were a kid or whatever, but like part of like the balance of card games was like cards are not equal, but the
Yeah.
balance of them was like, oh, the rare ones are like really hard to get, so like you know like people don't just have all the best cards, like so there's it kind of brings that element to this game somewhat too, which is like it's kind of it's like both a bad thing and a good thing at the same time, because it's kind of weird, like it like there's definitely this feeling where like, oh, it can feel bad, like, oh, I'm not playing the same game as everyone else, or as like as some other people, because I don't have like this card for this captain. But then there's the other element to where like, okay, but I have to like, it also like forces creativity. It's like, okay, so like this is what I have for this captain, what's my plan going to be, and like, and then like as you do that, like you figure that out, but then as you like play the game, you're unlocking cards, you're like getting those victory loots, and then you're like, oh, I unlocked this card for this captain, and then that's like super exciting when that happens. So it's like I feel like the I feel like it's worked out mostly good that the game works that way, and so that's kind of my opinion on the deck building.
Well,
Like
do you use a
it's a puzzle
generic
to
deck
figure out.
list? Are you a believer in the universal deck list? Because I have opinions, but I'll hear yours.
Yeah, and like yeah, I have in general, like some captains, they just don't have a power that lends
Matters.
to change, like, well, it's not that it doesn't even matter, it's like
No, of course.
it doesn't change how you want to build the deck
That's a much
in
better
a
way to put
meaningful
it.
enough way. Yeah.
So do you have an
um
example for that? Because like I think it's pretty clear that like if you're
yeah,
playing King Arthur CEO, right, like you can just play like
of
a
course.
generic thing and then you just take the
Yeah.
bennies as they come. But like what about something like Artemis, let's say? Like oh
That-
sorry, not Artemis. I'm thinking of Athena. Artemis is crazy. Artemis is just weird.
oh, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Athena, yeah, Athena's interesting because that's a good one, because it is one of the captains that has like a relatively like strong power early. So that like, that leads you to like think like, okay, maybe I don't want Ace of Hearts, even though that's like generally a pretty universally good card. Like maybe I don't want Ace of Hearts in here. Maybe I can find something better for the slot. Like, it's not crazy to play it, but you're gonna lose a lot less often in the early turns where you would, want to buy it. And like toys like Busted Bot are like, oh, maybe I want Busted Bot because both of those are getting scaled by this ability. Um,
But you
and
wouldn't
stuff like
like
that.
kind of shift your underlying strategy because of that? Like what are the anchor units that you would consider in your
Okay.
like core deck list that like something weird would have to happen for you to remove them?
Uh, that's a good question. I mean, for example, um, a lot of people play Mechanical Dragon because it's a dragon. Dragon's one of the most damaged strategies. Getting lots of treasures is very powerful with
Hmm.
lots of things. But I actually recently have come to the belief that it shouldn't be played in every deck. It should be played in the
I
decks that want like either like they
volume of
trigger off
treasures, yeah.
treasures. Yeah, they trigger off treasures, or like they scale like the stats of treasures, or so like collector, like, oh, it wants treasures, like Herpolia needs treasures, like Lady of the Lake needs treasures, electric pumps treasures. So like, yeah, you want it on those captains, but like on Nathaniel Drake, it doesn't really do anything, like it doesn't interact with Nathaniel Drake in any way.
I find the same with
Um,
Dorothy. I don't run
yeah,
Mechanical Dragon and Dorothy. There's so many other things
yeah,
that your deck list is so tight there because quests are so, like much better. and
Yeah.
it just does is not worth it in my experience. And I think that a big part of that is this general sense that like it's very hard to evaluate how much things that give you a bonus every turn are going to do.
Hmm.
When do you think is a realistic amount turn for the game to end? And I know that this varies a ton, but like I'm just a range that you kind of expect
So
games to end within.
I'd say if you don't like get a sub three um result, I would say the average game, like any game where you get a victory screen, generally ends somewhere between like 10 and 12. That's like average, and then like, you know, there'll be a couple of games that'll be like a little bit earlier and a little bit later. But yeah, most games fall probably like most games probably don't go past turn 14. That's like really late.
Yeah,
Uh
I think the main thing to me is that I've had the same experience where I think turn 12 is like not it's like the end game, you know, like or it's
yeah.
not
It's
it's like the
very
end of
like
the
the
game.
game
It's not
is
just the end
only
game.
going to be, yeah,
Like
it's almost
and
over.
there are you know, there's certainly it's not even that crazy for like things to go longer, especially if you kind of like are in a lobby where like you were a tempo player and then the last person left is like
Mm.
a also like tempoing and you just kind of like grind, right? Like no one spikes for a while until you kind of like reset your board. Um, but by and large, I would expect, you know, turn 11 to 13 is maybe my experience, and I think I am a little bit lower
Yeah.
ranked, and that makes a lot of sense that like when people are really like playing efficiently, you're gonna find your stuff and make it work better.
Yeah, I think the other thing that factors into this is uh are you playing a captain that plays butcher or not? Because if you're playing butcher, then yeah, like you're like all your game, like if it's going, like if you don't die, your games are like vast majority of your games are ending with you winning between 10 and 12. Like if it goes past that, you're probably going to lose. Not necessarily. Some butcher
Yeah,
games
butcher can
you
go
can
wild.
go late if you need to. Like if someone's just not dying. But yeah, there's also a lot of variance like with what other people are doing um that can like influence it. But generally I would say like if you're playing butcher, like the game ends between 10 and 12 like very consistently if things go like according to plan.
I found the same with basically any sort of captain that has enough of a payoff for tempo that you can realistically kind of change your game plan to make that work. So Witches 3 is you know, my favorite captain by
Mm,
far and really easy to just like if you're stomping, you just can end games on like turn 8 or 9, but like that's not common. Usually what happens is like you get to like turn 10 or 11 and then you're in one-on-one and you close it out like or you don't or that you know or they've actually found real scaling and you just pray that you
yeah.
somehow find enough double doubles, but you won't. Like,
Yeah, with Witches 3, like that's an interesting cat thing because I don't think there's even really a debate about this. I think that's just the strongest early game ability, like in terms of just raw power, like early on in the game. I think that is the most powerful. Like I guess consistent. Like there's
I think
captains that
Chucky
could high
could
roll higher.
like
No,
give.
I actually think Chucky's fallen off. Like I would say Chucky would. I would say that yeah, they were very close. Now I feel like he's fallen off a lot
It's so much less
in
consistent.
power.
And also, I think the
Yeah.
big problem with Chucky is that like, even if you like, assuming you get like two summons like early, that's so stable for 4 turns, and then you just it falls off a cliff like immediately. Like,
Yeah.
it's so or not even 4 turns, like 4 shops. You know, like it's
No, yeah. After like turn
really
three, it like
really
isn't
rough
really that crazy.
if
Yeah.
you don't get that Mecha Man like ASAP. And
Yeah, for sure.
if you do get the Mecha Man, I think you can hold on until you get your Rolos and stuff
Yeah.
and make it all work. But like, yeah, if
Well,
you don't find it, it doesn't work. Whereas like Witches 3 gives you a lot of space to not find things and still like hope.
yeah. That's the thing about those captains is I think the big thing about early game captains is they should basically always butcher because the strength of the early game captains is okay. I'm strong. I'm gonna win fights, and I'm not gonna lose fights. So that's gonna give me more time to put together butcher and just like, roll with that advantage, and then just end the game before people like with actually good, like strong mid to late game abilities can like actually like get a foothold.
So
So
I'm
yeah,
not like
like
super experienced with Butcher. Like I've run it
mhm,
plenty of times, but there's definitely strategies that where I'm like I'm so like I feel like very comfortable with them, right? Where like I feel like
mhm.
I know what to do when I'm not getting there, and I know when I can kind of like trust that it's gonna work out, or that like I know that I'm like not getting there and I need to like either change my approach or lose. Um, I feel like Butcher, when do you find it's too late to Butcher, basically? Like if you've
it's
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 never too
funny you
late.
ask that. It's funny that you ask that. It's so the only time it's too late to butcher is when you're forced to like buy epics that and like get rid of rares. That's like the only time it's really too late. But like if you're in a spot where there just isn't a good epic to like put on your board, I've like literally I think it was yesterday I won a game. I think it was like turn 14. I can't remember. But I took a turn 10. I got it. I completed a butcher turn 10, and it was like amazing. Like my board ended up being in like 5,000, 5,000. Like even taking it turn 10. So yeah, butcher is it's much better than people think it is, and
Oh,
it's
it
well,
absolutely
it's
is.
both. It both is better and not better than people think it is, and it can do much crazier things than people think it can do.
I think part of that is that people don't realize that it's the Velatro math again, right? They look at like plus 20, and they don't realize that that multiplies over as you start to upgrade your guys, like, and
Yeah. Well,
along
yeah,
with many
most
other
things
things.
that
But
buff. Yeah, like most shop buffs
oh,
are
so good.
worded carefully
Yeah.
so that they don't stack, basically. And Butcher's technically is also worded that way, but the thing is that it specifically buffs silvers and golds on top of it as well. But like, yeah, like I think shop buffs are also underrated in the game because they're really hard to like wrap your head around. Like you don't really understand it until you like see it in action.
Hmm.
Like that's why Harpolia and like Beanstalk are like they're much better captains than they seem to be because
I
when you do a shop buff like just wholesale, it stacks unnaturally
mhm.
because you get the bronze. That's buffed once, but then when you see it in the shop again, it retains that bronze buff, and then it gets another buff of on top of it for the silver, and then another for the gold. So by the time you gold it, you're getting like your shop buffs are basically tripling in value.
Yeah, that's what
It's
I
just
was trying
yeah,
to say with the
yeah,
multiplicative aspect, and I think with Butcher you
it's
get
so
such a
crazy.
solid like like you know, you're starting from such a big buff off of, like very little investment, and
But that's
it goes off.
actually the weird thing is that's the least
Tell me
important. I
about
mean,
it.
it's very important. Well, okay, it's both the most and least important part of it. The reason it's the most important is that it makes it so that you have infinite. You basically have like 4 to 5 like free turns to like assemble something that's like good enough to beat pretty much anything. But the crazy thing about Butcher is you're essentially like getting unbelievable deck thinning, and because of that you also get like unbelievable amounts of silvers, and you're able to assemble like all of these rare treasures, like these rare treasure engines so consistently and so like quickly that you're just able to do like just unbelievable things that people can they don't even think it's possible.
That makes so much sense to me, and I don't think I certainly hadn't really considered that aspect of it, but because like I think deck thinning is one of those things that I guess when I first started playing, I would sometimes like not take a spell that I should have taken because I was like, oh, I want to, like put a silver in the shop or whatever. And I've mostly stopped doing it depends on the spell, of course. Like it's so contextual, but I think that there just aren't enough turns to like try and chip away at it one card at a time. But just chunking out two tiers is like that does seem, like very impactful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like
Well,
the rare treasures I found, like so many of them are really like the rares and epics are like often more busted, I would say, than the legendaries. Um, but they
hmm,
need time or they need like a niche circumstance, whereas like the legendaries kind of just like provide stats.
that's actually interesting. So in my opinion, the best treasures in the games are the rares, like
Yeah,
in
that's what
terms
I
of
think.
like
Yeah.
when you get them. But and then actually for me, the epics are the worst treasures in the game.
Ah,
Um, which is interesting because like the reason they're the worst treasures in the game is because most of them are like so incredibly niche. Like some of them can be really
yes.
powerful if you have them in the right circumstance, but a lot of them when you get them on many boards do absolutely like literally nothing. Like Loki Scepter, like I have no mages. It does literally nothing.
I mean, and
Like
also plenty
parting
of other
gift is a really
situations.
powerful one, but if you have no farewells, it does literally nothing.
But like Fairy Queen's
Um,
wand also like technically
yeah,
anyone
you
can
don't want to
use it,
cast
but like
spells.
realistically, like there aren't that many situations where that number is going to meaningfully change what you're doing if
Yeah,
you were
that's a
already not
pretty
planning to cast spells. Like,
yeah.
but
That's the other thing. Like, that's the other thing about this game that is like one of the secret. That's one of the secret things about this game is like spells are in general like bad. Like any turn you because of like how the resource system works, you only get two actions per turn. Any turn you
most,
take a
yeah.
spell is a turn you're not taking a bronze, which means it's a turn you're not putting silvers in your shop for later. So it's like every time you take a spell, the spell has to do something like quite phenomenal to justify itself. That's why like the economy spells are like the best in the game because they just let you do more stuff. Um, yeah.
So are you a
So
believer at all in like doing a kind of I don't really like calling it mages because I think similar to like I don't think dragons is really dragons. I think it's treasures. Like I think like how do you feel about strategies that do intend to cast buffing spells?
well,
You can again, if you think they're garbage, you can just say it, but
no, 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 no,
yeah.
no. Well, okay. So in general, yes, they kind of are. They kind of are bad. But I think the game has improved. So they used to be they used to be like unplayable. I think like kind of like they used to. Well, when the game probably first started, they were maybe like okay-ish. I can't really speak to that because I just only started playing a couple months ago. But the game like other things got way more powerful than mages did for a very 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 long time, even with mages getting some tools that made them a little bit better, but other stuff just got much much better. But I think recently, oh, the other thing about mages is they require way more cards in your deck, like specific cards in your deck than like treasure decks do. I think like there's a lot of interchangeable like cards you could play in like a generic treasure deck. But for mages, you need like I need crystal or I need like Wincy or I need to have this mirror mage or like it just doesn't function. But the funny thing is, arguably the best or one of the best captains right now is Mira, and that is like a
Mira's really
true and
strong.
true mage. It's a true and true like it does exactly what mages needed to be a like an actual thing where like oh yeah I'm actually taking the spell almost every turn, the targeted spell almost every turn over buying cards in the shop. Like that's just like how you're supposed to play it, which is funny because yeah, a lot of times in game design things do not work, but this they did it. They did it. They accomplished it.
Yeah,
It works.
Mira's really, really strong and beatable. Like I feel like
Yeah.
it's very rare that I see the Mira board that has like just only by doing Mira things gotten so like nutso that it feels like in that particular lobby unfair. I think much
Hmm.
more often you're like, oh, okay, like they're doing real things, but their things are very different. Um,
I think it's also probably well because it's one of the it's one of the newest captains. A lot of people don't have it,
yes,
and so
we'll have to see what happens with that.
there's a lot less public knowledge about like how to play it because of that,
I think
and
one
people
thing
don't
that I
have all
do
the
want to
cards
say
that you
about
need for it.
like spells is that I think that a lot of the ones that you mentioned as being like important for a spell strategy were Epic Plus, and I think that that is like when I've had like a lot of success with spell strategies in the past, but not recently because I think Fae are so common that you can't bully people anymore. But I think setting up so that you can cast a all for one and have it like make you win two fights is like a great way to get from like an MMR where people don't know what they're doing to an MMR where people do know what they're doing, and then I think it you will have to adapt from there. um, because I think that
Yeah.
like basically what I'm trying to say by that is that like I think that spells are really really like functional at helping you like crush at a certain pace, but you have to really be able to read the lobby and like know what your options are. You can't just like play your strategy and hope that like it will if like as you progress it will progress in a meaningful way. You kind of have
Mm.
to make like decisions that don't scale. Um, and I think it can absolutely work, but once you're trying to start scaling from Epic, you're done. Like that's not real. um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think.
So I
mages
guess what I
are
mean by
the
that is like if you have like two Plunder Penny hunts and a Nightshade, like casting an AoE spell is going to be huge. Like it will do a lot. I don't know. Do you disagree with
yeah.
that?
Well, I guess it definitely can. I guess like part of the like work of like getting stuff to like that to work consistently is you really have to like fine tune your deck and have like a captain power that can really like
Yes. No.
support that. So
This is
like
not something that I would recommend. Like even in the captains that work with it, it's
yeah,
yeah.
like with Mira, like you can definitely do that. Although you actually want
Well,
AoE
then you want
spells a lot
targeted.
less. You want
Yes.
targeted spells, but like once you get like you can kind of get to that. You can get to the point where AoE spells are fine too. Like if there's nothing else, like if there's not a card like you want to buy, but because like Mirror can also scale the spells themselves with Nightshade and I mean I mean Crystal is weird on Mirror because you don't actually have that many treasures. Like yeah, you have mages, but like I don't even
I
know
actually
like
really don't like that about Crystal, and I really hope that they consider changing the way that her quest procs because for that exact reason. I think you can jam Mira in treasure decks for like random value.
oh
And
yeah, like Crystal is amazing on Dorothy. It's like the best. It's the
yeah,
best Crystal.
it's just
the
nuts.
best
And
Crystal.
like I feel like it's
Yeah.
just not right that like I've had to like cut Crystal from like Sorcerer Serena, which is like one of my most played captains, and all these things because it's just like I'm not gonna. I'm tired of spending my like turn 8 buying a 9/7. Like it's not real.
Yeah, yeah, like I don't have a strong deck for Serena put together, so I don't play it that often. So I haven't really done a lot of work thinking about like how I would want that deck to look. Like there's you know, I was thinking, well, maybe Candy is way you want to go, or I honestly don't know what the best way. My suspicion that is that Candy would be probably the best way to go with her, but Candy, like if you don't have to play Candy, it's often pretty good to not play it just to like have like more reliable spells. Like getting Latte early is like so unbelievably good, and if you have
I
Candy,
play
you're
a
just a
ton
lot
of
less likely to get
Serena.
it.
I'm not saying that like I'm like a Serena master or anything like that, but I
Hmm.
do have like a fair bit of experience with it. And I think
Hmm.
Candy is a trap for that exact reason that like
Oh, okay.
diluting your spell pool is simply not worth it because you can't consistently hit candy spells. Because if you could always double a candy spell, then sure. But a lot of the time,
Hmm.
then you're kind of like trapped halfway in between. You don't know if you want to double cast this one, and then you don't get your. The main thing is like you have way fewer double doubles in your shop, and that is very real.
Right.
Like that is the
Yeah.
main reason to play that captain, in my opinion, and like enough that like Rudolph I think is a key component for that strategy. In like
Hmm.
I just I don't think and I don't think it's just cute. I think it's extremely real that like you don't you don't. It's hard to lose if you cast like 8 double doubles, and that is
Yeah.
not
Yeah. I mean,
unrealistic to do if you have Rudolph, and it's completely impossible to do if you don't. Like,
yeah. The only thing I was thinking with Serena with Candy is that you get like another kiss. You get the epic Candy kiss, and so like you're a lot more likely to be able to like get to like crazy like rarity characters.
mhm.
But I mean that makes I mean yeah.
Oh, that
I
makes sense.
definitely need to like mess with it once I like unlock enough cards to like have a functional deck. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, no worries.
what was it?
Sorry, I meant to do like a check-in earlier, but it seemed like we were
Oh, what's
just like
up?
talking. We are technically like nearing the end of the slot. Would you be down to talk for another like 15 minutes or so to, because we were kind of messing around
I'm
at the
down to
beginning?
talk as long as you want.
Hell yeah,
This is
I'm loving
fun.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
um,
Like we can
yeah,
even if
I
it
do
needs to
need
be
to stop.
multiple episodes or whatever you need. Not whatever.
We'll see
Whatever.
how it is with the recording. I kind of have a suspicion that like I will have hosted this one terribly, and like I want to like see how that goes. But you know, an episode one is always going to be rough. What can you do? Um,
Yeah. Whatever.
yeah,
It's fine.
I'll still put it out there. But like if
Mm.
I might ask to have you back so that like it works
Yeah. No problem. Yeah. That's
a
cool.
little better. And I actually would really, I think I'm very excited for the idea of trying to like after a couple things like maybe like do a co-piloting thing where we have like four
Yeah.
people kind of yelling at each other from very different
Yeah.
perspectives because like it's so like when I hear you talk about butcher stuff, I'm like it makes me realize like how little I understand this character and like the
Mm.
implications of it. And when I like hear you talk about Serena, I'm like I just don't think that's true, but it doesn't sound like a like it's I can see the logic behind it, but it like just doesn't play out. And I
Oh
think that'll be
yeah,
really fun
that's
to
probably
see
true.
like actually in game. And I think
Hmm.
that's another thing about this game is that like a lot of the things that people might think are like overtuned are I think they're just like low resource or like the
Low risk.
low risk, I guess, or maybe they just don't require you to like fundamentally change anything about how you play. Um,
Yeah, less opportunity cost for
yeah,
like doing them. Yeah.
but there are definitely things where like you have to if once like a cohesive like deck list clicks and also like you kind of understand like when you have to make certain decisions basically like when your actual power spikes are because I think it's
Hmm.
one of the easiest ways that I think people get fifth and sixth is that you overinvest in things that don't matter, you know? Like you
Yeah.
just ended up putting a ton of resources in something and then by the time you get it, it didn't actually like help you. And the
Yeah, you
biggest,
take that cowardly lion and you like do
yep,
everything to try to get it, and then you
quests are
just
the
don't give it up.
by far the easiest way that you fall into this. You know, as simple as like buying an evil stepmother that you really had like didn't need to buy instead of
Yeah.
uh oh my God, like so Itsy Bitsy Spider I think is like a weirdly cool unit for the game in that like I think it's a little bit of like a benchmark. Once you start taking
Mm.
Itsy Bitsy Spider, I think you've like secretly leveled up a little bit because
Yeah, yeah.
like there's no reason to take this card when you're first starting. It doesn't do anything. Like it trades with the
Yeah.
3/1. Like why would you take this? It's a three like it's an evil stepmother that can never give you a treasure. But then like the more you play, you're like, oh damn, like I just took this greedy thing. I better take an anchor so that I don't just like because it's not just about this next fight where you're like hoping to, push or trade. It's about the fight after and the fight after until you can replace it. Where like how many times are you willing to take the extra like 10% that you're gonna lose? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
um,
Yeah, and then you get like a pix and you're like, "Oh man, this thing's unbeatable."
yeah. Oh my God, Pix is such a monster. Like, Pix is also one where I was very much sleeping on it because I was like, well, and I think I'm a player who really likes winning fights much more than some other people. I think other people just want to like do their thing and then the fights like they're like, okay, if I scale, the wins will happen. And I'm like, oh, if I win enough, the scaling, I'll find some scaling at some point. Like, um,
Mhm.
which I don't think is right. I think that like that's part of like why I was like stuck in like a certain MMR for a while that I'm like now learning how to invest a little bit more and like accept that like you don't always have to do that. Um, but I think it's worth noting that like it's not a terrible way to play either. Um, but yeah, I think going all in on just being like only have to scale is it will limit your like win rate a lot.
Yeah, I
Uh,
definitely can.
alrighty, so yeah, I was just asking, what are some of the things that you think are really fun to do right now in the game, and what are some things that like you find either super not fun or like that drive you a little bit crazy when they come up?
Okay. I do really enjoy playing Mira because it's so different from everything else. And I really like, kind of like refining my lines for it because I just got it. So I'm like unlocking cards and like I think one of the most fun things in general is just like each time I'm like looking at a captain, like I like go over all the cards that I have for it. I'm like and just like think about what the most optimal deck list is and like what all the little things that go into deck building. Like okay, like how much of this rarity do I want? How much of this do I want? Like do I want Butcher? Do I not want Butcher? Do I want to do like a dragon build or do I want to do like a Fey build or am I putting like Mirror Mage in this deck or like I like just like looking at a captain and just like thinking about all the different ways you could go with it and like figure out which is what I think is the best way to go with it. That's like a lot of fun and is one of the like unique aspects of this game. Um not everyone's not working with the same thing. They have like different things. So that like makes for more diverse games. That's really
Do you feel that
cool.
the games are diverse? I guess this, the meta's changed a lot, but let's say like, right now, if you were to log in, do you feel like the boards are diverse, or and a week ago, what would that have been different?
Um, hmm. I mean, there's definitely a lot of boards with Peachy Queen on it. Um, but I think in general that probably has led to more diverse boards and like overall.
Ah, okay.
Uh, because like yeah, like before, I mean, you would just take generically. I guess like, you would just take yeah. I'd say like Peachy Queen has pushed people more towards like Fae stuff in general. Like people are playing Fae Piggy again. Like people weren't doing that for a long time, even though there's like a synergy there with like having more shops to recruit stuff. Works
And
with
also, I
that.
think it lines up really well with the timing that Faye is strong. Um,
Yeah.
Not that Faye has
So
like a bad end game by any means, but I think Faye has like a dominant mid game in a lot of scenarios. And
well, yeah, like the shared pool, like Fae doesn't actually have many cards like in the collectible like in the collection, but like the shared pool of like default cards, there's a lot of like key Fae cards in there. So like Fae was honestly like it really wasn't it's not that far behind like dragon or treasure stuff. Like it's pretty close. It's pretty close to that. Peachy Queen has made it a lot better
mhm.
and they're like a lot more I say they're a lot more in line now. And a lot of times they're like a lot of times you just take Peachy Queen and then you get like a little bit of value and then you get rid of it. And like that's fine. And then there are some people that like keep it around longer.
Yeah, I've definitely been like
That
trying
like
to push the like limits of it, and because I think before I was like, yeah, I would just take it, grab, like because I think it, I really actually dislike how it warps the common turns. I think that
mm,
like the decision tree gets really weird because like the opportunity cost of like missing out a silver, thorn or rose if you like don't take it um on turn one and then you find or and like you find a Preachy Queen in the next shop, I think is like very real. Not that you should
mm.
like be taking Thorn or Rose over things that like can help you win fights, but when your shop is like three things that are like kind of weak in fights anyway, I, I don't know. I'm not sure that I love that because the swing is so huge between like you getting it and you not, and that happens so fast.
It
But
definitely feels really good when you have a Peachy Queen and you take a Thorn or a Rose. It feels like you're cheating, which
uh,
like
I
feels amazing. But
have been, yeah, I mean, it's like I was thinking about doing called shots basically, where just like, you post in the Discord with your like turn one and then like be like, okay, we got it, boys. Um,
yeah,
and I decided not to because I think it's a little obnoxious, but it it was correct every single time. I did get first every single time. And not to say that that's like a guaranteed recipe for success, but I think that like the percentages are not where they should be for like adding one common to the common pool. Um, I don't know.
yeah.
I think
Well,
that I have
I
a
think
number of
that
things that could change that, but I I don't need to like go into that right now.
I think well, what I wish they had done differently is I wish they had taken some commons out for the ones they put in. Maybe that would make it too busted. I don't know. Maybe Queen would be even more broken if they did that. I mean, I guess it would be better, obviously, because just having more,
Do
you're
you
more
think
likely to
Peachy
get
Queen
Thorn and
would be
get silvers.
too slow
Well, I
at
don't know.
uncommon?
I'm saying it like logically it would be better. I don't know if it would be too good, but it would be better. Like any like okay, well, anything that's strong, if there's less other stuff, then you're gonna get the strong thing more, which makes like part of strength is how likely you are to get the thing
Hmm.
in a game, right? Like something can be really really strong, but if your like odds of pulling it off are reduced, then it could still be fine, right? But if it's too high, then that's a problem. It could get to the part where it's a problem. I'm not
I
saying
think
it
that's
would
actually
be, but it
super
could be.
relevant with Butcher specifically because I think that like
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about this. Like what kind of epics and legendaries do you put into a deck with where you kind of intend to, your hope is that you find Butcher. What
Okay.
kind of
I'm
epics
glad you
and
asked about
legendaries
this.
do you put this in? Like, do you put in for that?
So here's the thing with Butcher, when people were, first figuring out, they were playing a lot of rares because, like, well, I want rares so that I can consistently, when I find Butcher, have good rares to like fill my Butcher board with. But I actually think it's the opposite. I think you don't really care about how many rares you have in that sense. You actually want like as few as possible. Like you want to play like very strong ones, especially when you go off with Butcher. But generally, I try to keep my Butcher decks with like four rares, including Butcher, if I can pull it off. Some I'll have five. Um, but yeah, in general, I try to like narrow my rares for that purpose because if you find Butcher, it's so powerful, but if you don't find it, then you can't do it. So
So
it's
with
just
that
like
in
not a
mind, do you
thing.
just like jam a bunch of legendaries in so that you're like general card pool is
So
smaller, or how do you
what I
what's
did,
your thought
yeah,
process?
I used to do that. I used to not even play epics so that I could like
Yeah, have more
still
time. That's kind of why I
get.
mentioned legendary
Well, yeah, I used to
specifically.
not play. Yeah, I used to not play butcher so that on turn 7 I could still like find slash complete butcher more often.
Hmm.
But I actually have changed my opinion on that, and now I am much bigger. So I play Pisces in a lot of decks, just because
Solid, yeah.
Tinkerer is good in a lot of decks. But I so that used to be like the only epic I used to play because it's just so powerful. But now I am in my like universal deck list, quote unquote. I'm playing like Sir Francis Drake and Smug in like a lot of decks because they're just the best. I think they're just the best like standalone epics
I like Smug a
in the
lot for like a
collection.
lot of things because you can just if you have like a
Yeah,
respectable
he has
treasure count, he has huge stats. Like,
yeah, Treasure Hoard 3 is like huge, and he like also just lets you like spike in power. Like he actually like like the problem with epics, like treasures and characters actually, is they're just not
they're slow.
enough better than rares. Like they're just like
Hmm.
there's like this huge massive power spike between uncommon and rare. Like that's where people get that feeling that like, oh, the game really starts on turn 5 because that's when you get the rares. Those are the real cards, and like there's truth to that. Like there is some truth to that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
like the card, yeah.
But I think
So
if you just don't play the first 5 turns, then you don't get to play the rest of the
oh
turns.
yeah, you'll just be dead and it won't matter. But yeah, like it's not that the first 4 turns don't matter, but like the first 4 turns are you're just like trying to have like as strong a board as possible. Maybe if you're butchering, you'll value egg, like turn 1 egg and like chameleon a lot more because that's gonna help you finish like
Hmm.
one action faster. So like that's a big thing. You're also like if you find Peachy Queen, you want to like get some shot buffs from Thorns and stuff. So like yeah, they're definitely the early game matters, and it probably matters even more now because of Peachy Queen. But yeah, where was I going? Oh, I was saying what like so epics. Yeah, epics suck. Like on the whole, they're bad. There are some good ones like Jasmine Dragon's great, and like like some collectibles are good, and like Ironcast is like a niche card that is really good in some decks and is kind of like
It's
not
such bait
really
in most
great.
scenarios, though.
Yeah. So like there are epics. There are some niche epics, but like universally, there's not that many good epics. Like epics are very poor. There's like tons of horrible epics. Or like just yeah, like subpar epics.
Yeah, now that you're
So
saying it, I think you're totally like I'm thinking about the ones that are like kind of not for a specific strategy, and these are usually ones that you would have had to add to your deck list. Like the
yeah.
generic ones, I'm like, I feel like if you have a ton of shot buffs and Helica can be pretty nice.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Like they're all which I it's not
but
necessarily a bad thing in terms of like because it probably does lead to like
well,
some
I kind
level
of
of
like that.
advanced
Like,
diversity and like you kind of have to figure out okay like this is my epic for this situation like I have Huntsman's Axe so I can play this Angelica on J and I can get some good value out of it and that's cool but most of the time I'm never even going to consider putting this in my comp ever
uh, yeah, I
which is
think the
yeah
philosophy behind it is that like in rares are like where you're, like they were trying like. I think initially they were trying to give you some time to kind of like explore, figure out what's working, where your treasure,
mhm.
like where your first like uncommon treasure is, let that kind of set your direction. And then by epic, you're supposed to have your direction, and that's when like these niche things are supposed to like shine. But I
Yeah
find that they don't
mhm.
even shine when you have the setup for them a lot of the time.
Yeah
And then when
they're
you have
not
the setup for
yeah
them, it's often not what you think it's going to be, right? Like things
hmm
like Crystal, not good in mages, things like Angelica, not good in pirates. Like, but like these are good and these are great units, but like it's not quite working.
yeah I mean I think so I think it's I don't think Crystal is not good in mages I just think it is it is more powerful. Like it's more powerful in Dorothy than it is in mages. But that doesn't mean I don't think it's useless in mages. I
No,
just
yeah,
think
I think
because
it
like
is.
yeah, like
I think, well, I
because
guess to me it's kind of a I feel that if you want to run Crystal with mages, you run Miseria, you have to run
oh
Miseria.
yeah, I mean
There's just
Miseria is probably the card that I think Miseria is the card that goes in the most decks. Like just full stop. Yeah, like I think almost every single deck should play it.
I'm trying
There's
to
like a
think if
couple of
there's anything
exceptions.
else. I think that plenty of decks um, probably don't want to play it, but most decks do. Like the very, very significant majority. But I think that there are times when like it,
Like I
uh,
think you don't play it in the three witches.
yeah,
That
Witches
that's
3,
one where you clearly don't
Merryweather.
want it. But
Um,
Merryweather, you could play it. Like that's the thing. Like there's very few captains. Like maybe you don't have to play it in Merryweather, but like I don't know if it's wrong to not play it.
oh
Like
no, it would be
even
perfectly
especially
fine. But
especially Merryweather, you could probably engineer a situation where if you took it, you could like move
oh
your board around to like lose like one
yeah,
turn, and then you
on.
just play. So
But I guess
I
to me
don't.
the payoff for it, because I don't think you're going to be consistently ping-ponging during a stage where where those stats matter. I think that it's
Mm,
much easier to just set up a situation where you just like don't lose fights, and then that I guess that's my
yeah,
thinking there. And I think the payoff
somewhat,
for it is very real. But yeah,
somewhat,
I hear
but
what you're saying.
yeah, the big thing about it is like if you're not losing, then like things are fine. If you are losing, it's just so powerful. It's gonna help you like to stop losing. And like it the way the card works, it's not super difficult to get into like each time you lose, it powers you up. So then like if you only lose like a half a heart, it generally heals that heart, and then generally people get like another step ahead of you, but like not quite enough to full heart you, and then you like lose, but then you get a bunch of stuff, and then you heal it. Like it just keeps happening. And then also like for Merryweather in particular, like you're a Fey deck, and so you want to play Tinkerer, but you're not that good at getting treasures. So Missouri like perfectly solves that issue for you. Like it's also amazing on Mira for that exact reason, because like you have to play Tinkerer because you're pumping your Fae like so much that it's so unbelievably powerful. If you can just like have that it's so good. Um,
Yeah, I
so like
100% agree for Mira. I actually don't think that Merryweather needs to be Fey by any means. I think that like
really, that's interesting.
having Merryweather like is another captain that I think I have a lot of experience with and can like kind of say things confidently even if they sound a little bit out of pocket. But
Mm,
I've had a lot more success running Merryweather just being like efficient, like like summons, supports, and then I'm not saying you don't play the face stuff if it's going well, but a lot of the time you can just kind of play super greedy because you're pretty stable in the first like 6 turns of the game, and then like assemble something, and then you just go from like you're basically like replacing your captain ability with your first good treasure. And I think you also have an extra heart is kind of how I approach that character if I
yeah, I
want
mean
to,
that's
and it
definitely
works
that's definitely a
perfectly
thing.
fine. Like you can
Yeah, that's
do
definitely a thing you
whatever.
could do. Yeah, I
Um,
used to think like I guess like one time I theoretically thought, well, Merryweather's pretty good early, so like you could be Butcher and then do that, and just like you just forget about the ability once you're Butcher. But like I actually tended to not like that as much because um I didn't really like it. I found it very very awkward to
transition.
transition
Yeah.
into Busher because you have to like give up all this stuff, like all your like once you give up one of your supports, it's like your board's like very different, and then also you're also cutting yourself off from like um oh god, what is the range thing called?
I know Moonshadow. I also
Moon
forget
Shadow.
the name of
Yeah,
that
you
all the
yeah you
time
cut
because
yourself
there's
off
only
from
one captain that runs it.
yeah you cut yourself off from Moon Shadow and like Tinker and like all these things like the yeah the awkwardness plus that like basically with Butcher I'm always thinking about like okay, what am I giving up by butchering, and like how good is the captain for getting me there. Like if it's a captain that gives me economy in any way, I'm definitely butchering, because butcher economy are like yeah, they're soulmates. So like a lot of people don't like, for example, a lot of people don't play butcher on thief, but I think that's wrong. Like I used to think, oh, you could do it one way or the other and it's fine, but I think it's wrong to not have it in your deck even if you don't do it every game, because like yeah, Iron Cast is very broken on Lightning Thief, and like losing that is a thing, but like Lightning Thief is just
I
it's
kind
so
of love
consistent
just
at
doing,
getting extra shops.
yeah, the value Lightning Thief runs to me are so much more fun than the like going off
Oh,
Lightning Thief runs where you just like get where you just get a couple things and you just like got like total of like five. You basically like built your own like this little piggy, but you also got some other random bennies in there. Like
yeah. Wait, what
Um,
did you say? What was the last thing you said?
oh, but like sometimes you just get like other random things like going well for
Oh, random
you.
things.
Yeah,
Okay.
like um, yeah. Okay, so I think I actually I'm gonna have to wind down the call pretty soon, but I had a lot of
Okay.
fun.
Yeah. No,
Awesome.
definitely.
All right. So I think we're reaching the end of our time. And we're gonna end the episode with a little trivia or like weird interaction quiz, some edutainment.
Okay.
And basically I'll be asking you like about like a niche scenario and like what happens. And if
Mm.
it's super easy for you, maybe we'll ask another. But uh,
Okay. Let's see.
also, I'm not gonna lie, some of these I don't know the answer. I'm kind of hoping that one of my guests can tell me because like I kind of just want to know. Hi there, it's Gempot here with a preemptive correction. My answer to the first question here was not correct. Candy spells only appear in your shop if you have a candy character in your deck or a candy captain. I've left this segment in because it flowed well into the second question, which is correct. Sorry. Uh,
Okay.
let's start with this one. So, like, your Mr. Fox steals someone else's magical piping bag, and
Mm-hmm.
then you buy another quest character, of course, right? Like, so
Right.
your candy count goes up. Do candy
Right.
spells start appearing in your shop?
Yes, I believe they do. Yeah. Anytime you have something that interacts with sweetness, I believe they do
I
show up in your
believe
shop.
the way that it works as well is that if you have a the bag in your inventory, it's not going to happen. But if your candy count starts to accrue, it will happen. And then there are certain
Oh,
other
interesting.
scenarios where if you are a candy captain, they have a tag somehow that like makes spells appear in your shop. So
Oh
if you
yeah,
pick
yeah.
one up
If
from
you if you
Co-Captain's
steal,
Corsair, yeah,
yes, if you steal a candy captain, you 100% the spells show up like
yeah, which
in
of
your
course
pool
as
right
they
away.
should.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah. 100%.
all right, let's do one more.
Okay.
So let's. I think because you mentioned stealing, so I assume you're thinking about goatee. So let's say you're playing goatee
Okay.
and you bought like an egg and it transformed, and then afterwards you lose a fight to Dragon Mother. What happens?
Okay. So if you have an egg and it hasn't transformed yet, then if you lose to Dragon Mother,
No,
a
it has
silver egg.
already. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
it already has transformed.
Yes, and then you
Okay.
lose to Dragon Mother.
So I think it becomes a silver egg and it just doesn't do anything.
That is correct.
Like,
Yes.
yeah,
You get a
which is
silver
really
egg
cool
that
because you
cannot
get a bonus
transform.
shot. Yeah, so it's actually it's pretty good still.
It's actually pretty sick. It's often going to be
Yeah,
better than like a lot of captain abilities that you can't take advantage of, but
yeah.
it does feel pretty weird when it happens where you're like,
It's yeah, it's definitely strange. But if you do it before it transforms, you'll still get a silver egg as well, and then you'll still get the bonus. Like, yeah,
yeah, it's
it's
just a
weird.
little bit better. But
But if you haven't bought an egg, it does literally nothing because you just throw away the egg and it just does nothing, which is so it's kind of funny. But
I hadn't thought about that side of it, but that's completely true. Yeah, it's so much
yeah,
worse. Um,
yeah, it's definitely yeah. Goatee is one of the coolest ones because and it's also like any captain that wants egg is like already egg turn one has some interest in it turn one is already like kind of wants to be butcher because that just makes butcher like it helps you find it and it helps you complete it. It's like yeah,
when would you
that's
egg
another part
turn
of the
one
game.
if you don't have Butcher in your deck? Because I don't think I've done that in a very long time.
I
I've done it
mean,
with Butcher, but without Butcher, it's
so
been ages.
like I mean, honestly, because rares are like kind of better than epics a lot of the time, like, and the other part of it is taking it turn one is like less of an opportunity cost than taking it turn two, even though turn two you get a high rarity thing because it happens one turn sooner, right? And
I also think very
also,
relevantly, you can't lose by a full heart in that turn.
also true, yes, also true.
Well, you can, but
Um,
we're not talking about Hades.
yeah, Hades, yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Wonder if you could do it with like fates too, maybe, but
I gotta ask you before we end the
potentially.
episode, just one question. Do you, uh, we don't have time to really go into it, but do you think full heart damage is bad? Do you think having both full heart damage and half heart damage is bad? I,
No, I don't think it's bad in and of itself. It can lead to some frustrating moments, but it also leads to more tension too. Because like if there wasn't full heart damage, the fights would be a lot less interesting. I think. Um, and it would lead to like a reduction in like some of the depth of like the strategy of the game. even like it does lead to frustrating moments, but like kind of like how like land variance in Magic leads to frustrating moments, but it's like a core integral part to like how the variance of the game works. Like so, I think it's kind of like that. So
Yeah, I mean,
I think it is
it's one
generally. I
question
think
that I
it's a
think
good
is
thing.
really like I think this is just one question that I make want to make sure that I'm asking everybody about because I think that
Yeah.
like it's one of those things that like comes up on the Discord so often because it leads to bad feelings, and when you have bad feelings, of
Hmm.
course you want to vent them, but like I my current belief is that like it is a actually like part of what makes the game really fun and exciting, but in
Yeah.
like ways that are kind of it takes a long time to describe, and I want to kind of get a lot of well, I think it'll be fun to get a cumulative effect of that through a lot of players and like a little bit of chit chat from multiple
Yeah.
people about it.
Yeah. It's like it's the stakes of it, right? Like the fights would just have like no, they wouldn't have stakes. Like that's part of I think it's part of why they like when it's finals they also do that. It's like it increases the stakes and then also like it just makes it so the game ends. Like the game like
Oh
if
my,
there
yeah,
wasn't full heart damage period in the game, like the late game captains would be like probably too good and the games would be like much they would be so much like like I don't know how much longer they would be, but it would be like extremely significant amount longer. Like maybe like at least 50% longer, if not like twice as longer or even more. Like,
yeah.
so,
I think if you
so
got rid of
it's
full
definitely
heart
important. Yeah.
damage, like you certainly can't leave healing in the game, right? And like everybody loves healing after like
Yeah,
half heart.
yeah.
Like nobody's
Yeah.
complaining about that. So
Yeah,
like
for
I think
sure.
that's kind of just another side of the coin. Yeah, I'd love to talk more about it, so maybe I can
Mm.
sneak you in for another time. But I think
Yeah.
it's about time for this episode to end. Thank you so much for coming in. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
All right,
Happy to
yeah,
talk about the game.
yeah. We'll see you around. Hopefully in games every once in a while, because that always means that I'm doing pretty well.
All right.
All right, see you around, Apple Chips. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Two-Headed Wizard is hosted by me, Tom H. It is unaffiliated with Million Dreams. Our intro music is Connective Tissue by Alex Hamlin, and our outro music is King Porter Stomp by Joel Cummins. Our artwork is by me. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can search for Jampot in the Once Upon a Galaxy Discord and shoot me a DM. Thanks for listening.